Yo, what's going on, your boy Ghost here, and today I am bringing you guys another comparison video between the Modern Warfare MP5 and MAC-10, and we're basically going to be continuing on the conversation on what the best secondary, or I guess SMG is currently in Warzone, because right now there's about, you ask, people, and you're going to probably get so many different responses about what the best SMG is, and so here we are, making another video on these SMGs. But I wanted to specifically do this video because the Modern Warfare MP5 has been getting a lot of love recently, and it's being just, I guess, kind of revived ever since that new update came out. And the MAC-10, I swear, is probably like the most reliable SMG that you'll ever see. That gun has gone through so many things, and it's still like always in the context of the best SMGs. And even now, right now, it's being used and considered the top SMG. But anyways, before we get into the comparison, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000. We're probably less than 200 subs away. So, help a brother out. Every sub helps. And, yeah, man. Also, if you guys do me the favor of following me on my Twitch channel, we're about 6 followers away from 200. That would also be amazing. And, yeah, man. But with that being said, let's get into this comparison. And here we have the recoil pattern for the MP5, which, as you can see, is actually pretty low. And for an SMG, this gun has pretty much low recoil, or pretty much no recoil. And at range, this weapon is pretty solid. However, I will say that's going to be dependent on how you build your MP5. Because as you guys can see there, my build is for close range. I think that's pretty obvious. You see the APTEC, you see the sleight of hand. And I think you can infer that my weapon is meant for close range. And if you want a better, I guess, MP5 for range, I would definitely recommend you using like the hipfire build, where you put the 5mW laser and you put like, I don't know, another attachment. I don't remember what attachment it is, but you basically put on the 5mW laser, you get rid of APTEC, and you're just able to have a better time at range. Or you can even still use my build, and instead of the integral, you use monolithic, because I think the monolithic, I'm not entirely sure on this, so don't quote me on this, but I think the monolithic might be better for range. But I don't know, I feel like the monolithic integral is better, and I personally decided to use it over the monolithic suppressor, and here we are. And also, when it comes to sleight of hand, man, I would definitely recommend using sleight of hand, or at least for this build. Again, if you're using a different build, you probably won't be able to fit it in. But for my build, I would definitely recommend it instead of using like Stifled, because this weapon's reload is kind of slow, or for me it was kind of slow, and the sleight of hand really helped in certain situations when I was fighting multiple people and barely had any time to like regain. So having sleight of hand was really helpful, and I would only recommend it to you if you feel like you're getting into a lot of action. If you don't, maybe it's not the most necessary attachment, you probably substitute it with something else, but it's not going to come down to personal preference, so you build it how you want to. And yeah, man. And I want to go back to the whole range aspect between both of these weapons, because my class setup, again, I mentioned, isn't the greatest, but again, it's not, in comparison to my MAC-10 class setup, I feel like it's not really better than the MAC-10 at range. Damage-wise, it is, but that's all really comes down to you being able to hit your shots. And again, with my MAC-10 class setup, I feel like I'm able to hit my shots a lot easier, because I'm using like the combat tank and whatnot. So the attachments that I put on it makes it a little bit better at range, and I guess that's what I'm looking for with my MAC-10. I put range on it, whereas with the MP5, I value close range over it instead of having like that mid or long range game, which I think I still do well at mid range. Some ranges I actually can't really compete at, because this weapon won't be able to output that damage, or I won't be able to really control it to output that damage. But yeah, man, again, that really just comes down to the way you build it, and I personally believe that the MP5 is one of those weapons where the weaknesses and strengths really matter on how you build the weapon. Like, whereas other SMGs, I think that, yeah, attachments can determine how, like, the weaknesses and strengths of your weapon. But the MP5, I think that's where it truly, like, matters how you build the weapon. Because you can build it a certain way, and it's going to benefit you in one area. And if you build it another way, it's going to benefit you in another area. Like, I don't think you could just use one build for everything. I think there's specific builds for specific things, whereas other SMGs, like the MAC-10, I feel like if you use a certain attachment, you're still going to be able to map people at mid-range. You're still going to be able to be at close range. You're still going to be able to do this, and that. But with the MP5, I feel like if you use one attachment over the other, you miss out on a certain aspect of it. And then if you use another attachment, you miss out on one aspect, but you get another aspect. It's just how I feel about this weapon. And it's actually one of the reasons why I love this weapon a lot, because this weapon, you could just build it in so many ways. And when this gun was meta, I swear there was so many builds of this weapon going around where people were like, no, this is the best MP5. No, this is the best MP5. And people were just leaning towards their own MP5s. And I think that the MP5 is just like the king of variety when it comes to class setups. Now, right now, that may not be the case, but back in the day, man, that's how I felt like. Anyways, man, with that being said, let's get into the MAC-10. And here we have the recoil pattern for the MAC-10, which as you guys can see seems to have more recoil than the MP5, so it having a better range game is kind of weird. But again, it all matters about class setups, and I don't really want to go too deep into range anymore. We went through that for the first half of the video. Now we're going to talk about stats and whatnot, and this is how I'm actually going to be doing my videos, or my comparison videos for in the future reference. I'm going to be talking about stuff like I did in the first half, and then I'm going to get into the stats in the second half. So, in future reference, when you watch these comparisons, keep that in mind. But anyways, the first stat I want to talk about is the fire rate between both the MAC-10 and MP5. And if you guys watched my last video with the MAC-10, you guys would know that the MAC-10 has a really fast fire rate. Now, I don't really care about going into specifics and numbers for that, but for this video I will. The MAC-10 has a 1,118 rounds per minute fire rate, while the Modern Warfare MP5 has a 798. And so the difference there is, bro, saying it's extreme is an understatement. The MAC-10 kills the MP5 in terms of fire rate, and that's one of the reasons why it's able to compete so well with this gun, even though the damage is completely one-sided. Now, listen to this, because I was very surprised to hear that the MP5 did this much damage. So for 0 to 9.5 meters, the Modern Warfare MP5 does 49 damage to the head, it does 34 to chest and stomach, and it does 30 to the extremities, which is hands and limbs, which is just mind-boggling because this weapon actually has way more damage than the Cold War MP5. And the Cold War MP5 was known for its damage. It was recognized as the better MP5 in terms of damage before the update, but now it's not better, which is just, I couldn't believe what I read when I first saw this. Now, on the other hand, the MAC-10 has a 27 headshot, or 27 damage to the head, 23 to the chest, 23 and stomach, my bad, and then 20 to the extremities. And it's crazy that a weapon that is completely outclassed in damage is still able to compete just because it has a really high fire rate. Like, if the MAC-10 had a slightly lower fire rate where like it was like 900 RPM instead of 1,100, it'll probably get smoked by the MP5. But just because it has that crazy of a difference, it's able to compete with the weapon even when it's completely outmatched in terms of damage. But I will say that regardless of all that, I think that these two weapons in a theoretical like head-to-head battle, one completely dominating over the other is kind of, I would say, not impossible, but unlikely, because situations really do matter. And although like the MP5 has a lot more damage than the MAC-10, or although that the MAC-10 has a faster fire rate, situations will really determine on who comes the winner. Like, I don't think any statistic is really gonna put one over the other, like unless it's like a complete blatant difference where like you feel it and like no other one can touch it. Like, for example, let's say like the FFAR compared to any other SMG back when the FFAR was meta. Like, that difference was 100% noticeable. But the MAC-10 can outgun the MP5, and the MP5 can outgun the MAC-10. Like, it's not one or another where it's impossible to gun one when you have, like, if you have a MAC-10, it's not impossible to gun an MP5. Anyways, back to the whole damage stuff. I don't really want to go beyond the 9 meters because, again, I think that the MP5 is a weapon where it has so much damage at close range that when you shoot at long range, it's gonna kind of feel like a marshmallow shooter because you're doing a lot of damage up close. So when you start going off to long range and when you start also missing your shots, it's gonna feel a lot weaker. And I'm just gonna chalk it up and say that like the MAC-10 might have the advantage at range. That really just comes down to how you feel. But I don't really want to talk about range. If you guys want to take a look at those specific stats, I feel free to. I just don't think that the damage stats for range are that relevant because these are SMGs. And just the fact that the MAC-10 feels a lot easier to control, that's just all you need to really know. But again, all comes down to the cloud setup or whatever. But I do want to say that both of these weapons, what I like about them is just the fact that they're very mobile. Even if I use like a different build for the MP5, I think the MAC-10 and MP5 are just really mobile, and I just love that about SMGs. Being fast, double time, and all that, like these weapons just make me so happy when I'm running around the map. They're both very efficient, and in terms of like rankings, I think I would actually have both of these weapons in the top 3 Actually, I think that's not really a fair statement. I think based off the guns that I've used, I'm confident in putting it in the top 3, but I'm still missing a few SMGs because there's still a lot of SMGs out there that are being considered top guns, top SMGs. And we're going to get to that shortly. But yeah, man. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the Modern Warfare MP5, and are you excited that it's kind of slowly coming back? And how do you rate it in comparison to the MAC-10, or in general, how do you rate it in comparison to all the SMGs in this current season? But with that being said, man, thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.